Next, let's take a look at a few of the different ways we can create custom dabs. In order to capture a dab, we need to first create an image of a dab. I'll create a new canvas. The canvas size is going to determine the maximum dab size. The largest brush you can make in Painter is 750 pixels, but it doesn't hurt to make the dab a bit larger than that. If you make the dab too small, it may look blurry when you paint with a brush size that is larger than the dab size. Also, if your dab has a lot of fine details, you may want to add a little headroom so that the features remain crisp if you apply a dab effect to the dab. I'll choose pixels as the unit of measurement. When you're working in pixels, the resolution doesn't matter, so I'm going to enter 1024 for the width and height to create a perfectly square canvas. Before we create our custom dab, let's take a look at some examples of captured dabs. I'll choose the chalk category, and many of these brushes use captured dabs. If we look in the dab preview panel, we can see a larger preview of the dab. As you may know from previous lessons, when I paint with a captured brush, the dab will be repeated along the stroke. We can create a captured dab out of anything, a photograph, a brush stroke, or even a computer-generated image. The only limitations are that it needs to fit on a square canvas, and it needs to be in grayscale. The dab is loaded with the color chosen in the color picker, so I can select red, and now my dab is red when I paint. Let's go ahead and illustrate a custom dab with the brushes in Painter. I'll select the default scratchboard brush, and restore all default variants. Then I'll choose black to paint with. I want to make sure that I'm painting directly onto the canvas layer, although you could paint on a layer as long as you flatten the image or hide the background before you try to capture the dab. I'll paint a wavy black line, followed by two more wavy lines in lighter gray values. Black will be the most opaque area of the dab. The gray values will be semi-transparent. You can fill the canvas to make a square or round brush, or you can make your dab taller or wider. I know this seems like a weird dab shape, but you might be surprised how something abstract like this might work well for painting. Before we can turn this into a dab, we need to select a brush that we want to apply the captured dab to. You can select any default brush, and then just change the dab type to captured. I'll choose fat chalk since it's already using captured. The next thing we want to do is create a selection to define what we want to capture. You can use the rectangular selection tool, or press Ctrl-A to select all. White is going to be transparent, so the background is not going to show up in the dab. In either case, select as little of the background as possible. If you happen to be working with a layered document, it's best to make the background white. In order to capture this dab, we'll use the Capture Dab button in the Captured panel. A dialog appears giving us the option to name the dab and place it into a specific library. I'll name it Wavy and save it in my custom dab library. Now if we look in the Captured Dab library, you can see the new dab has appeared. It may be good to save the dab composition as a RIF or PSD in case you want to edit it at a later point. Let's create a new canvas so that we can test our brush. I'll use the Painter default preset. I'll make sure the brush tool is selected. I'll pick a blue color, and I'll paint a few test strokes. Now you can see what the dab looks like as a stroke. It looks kind of odd, but we've only chosen some of the basic brush properties, so let's see if we can make the brush more interesting. First, I'll reduce the grain to 80% so we can see the lighter gray line in the dab. We could also try changing the method to drip and the subcategory to grainy drip. Next, let's go to the size panel, and let's add some size jitter with some smoothness and reduce the minimum size as well. Now if I paint some test strokes, I'm getting a really unique looking brush. This brush might work well for painting trees or water. If performance slows down a bit when working with large captured brushes, this is normal. You can see how powerful these custom dabs can be. You can use them very intentionally to create a specific shape or brush stroke, or you can create abstract shapes like this to see what kind of effects you can get. Let's change the method to wet and the subcategory to real wet buildup. I'll lay down some paint and then pick the brush up to let the media diffuse. Now this brush creates an interesting water pattern in watercolor. I'll also add an angle expression that is set to bearing with an appropriate angle range and stepping. This will allow me to tilt my pen to change the angle of the dab. This really helps the brush not look so static. The next step is very important. Because we started by modifying a default brush, we will want to make sure to save the new brush as its own variant, and then reset the default brush we modified. If I were to reset this variant without saving it, I'd lose my progress. So I'll save this brush by going to Brushes, Save Variant. I'll give it a unique name like Broken Watercolor. You can save the brush in any category you like, though I recommend you save your custom brushes in a custom brush category. Next, I'd recommend exporting the brush to back it up to your computer. You can do this by going to Brushes, Export, Brush.